Now
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:06 on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here on a very busy Monday morning, and we're going to keep it busy because that's what you'd expect. You've got a busy day. We've got a busy day. We're going to throw a lot of information at you, news, and hopefully some entertainment as well. At 7:35, Hung Cao is running for U.S. Senate in Virginia. 8:05, John Solomon suing the Biden administration over their COVID-19 vaccine safety disclosures. And then 8:35, Vince Coglianese, host of this afternoon's Vince Coglianese show. He had Donald Trump on for an interview. You're going to hear it first today here at 5 o'clock, but we'll preview it with Vince. I'm Larry O'Connor. That's Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Joe diGenova joins us now. Joe, where to begin? There's a lot. Real fast. Let's really hit this fast because we've got so much else. But I'm hearing I hate reports like this. Here's the headline: Supreme Court might have decision on Colorado Trump ballot case. Well, they either will or they won't. Why are you wasting my time with might? But when do you expect a decision on that one?
Today.
You will. Okay. So today is no more might. Joe diGenova just said it.
Tomorrow there's some primaries. As you know. And the court really has a duty, especially after the oral argument that was occurred that looked like there was a majority of the court that favored overturning the Colorado Supreme Court decision. I predict that Trump is going to have the beginning of a major series of victories in the Supreme Court. He's going to win, whether it's tomorrow or not, who knows, but probably tomorrow. He's going to win 9-0 on the Colorado case. It's a slam dunk. But more importantly, he is going to win the immunity case. This will be the single most important decision by the Supreme Court in 100 years. The Supreme Court is going to rule that a president has at least some immunity from criminal prosecution because otherwise she cannot conduct the office of the presidency. In 1982, the court ruled that presidents are absolutely immune from civil suits. When you read that case and you read the reason that they ruled that way, it is absolutely apparent that they are going to rule that a president is immune from criminal prosecution. All of Jack Smith's cases will be thrown out.
Wow. So, listen, you're obviously ahead of this story because the oral arguments won't be until the final week of April, but you know what's at stake
Correct.
Here, Joe. Because I'm looking at it, I'm not a lawyer, let alone a constitutional expert, Joe, but it seems to me that if you can hold Trump civilly or criminally liable for the speech he gave on January 6th, and it really does boil down to that speech he gave, it looks like, then how can the family of Laken Riley not sue Joe Biden for his border policies?
That is absolutely correct. And as I said the other day in a discussion about this, if I were a smart person, I would be drafting an indictment to charge a conspiracy against the president, the current president of the United States, the vice president, Alexander Mayorkas, and a number of other federal officials for denying the civil rights of that family, Laken Riley's family, and her, and all the other people who have been the victims of crimes by people who entered the United States with the permission and invitation of the President of the United States, Joe Biden, in violation of his oath of office and the federal laws prohibiting exactly what he did.
Joe diGenova is our guest, and you mentioned the immunity case that the Supreme Court now has decided they'll hear oral arguments on the last week of April. You just gave us a legal analysis and a constitutional analysis that was shot through the prism of the separations of power and the executive branch. Jamie Raskin, on the other hand, his biggest concern is apparently the election. Listen.
These justices know what their powers are, right? They know the court schedule. They have the same calendar. Do you look at this court and think some of these justices may want to delay these trials?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think if you don't believe that, you're too innocent to be let out of the house by yourself.
Wow. Too innocent to be let out of the house by yourself if you don't. So he's basically, I mean, this is undermining our institutions, Joe, which is ironic since that's what they accused Trump of doing on January 6th. But when Jamie Raskin says, and Dick Durbin said the same thing this weekend, that the Supreme Court is dragging their feet because they care more about the election than about justice in this case. I keep hearing justice delayed is justice denied. Aren't they basically undermining the Supreme Court and their co-equal power in our Constitution?
And that is exactly what they are intending to do. This is part of a campaign to destroy the legitimacy of the court because the Democrats don't like it that Merrick Garland was denied a possibility of a vote to get on the court, and Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton and got 3 Supreme Court justices on the court.
Yeah.
Remember, Mitch McConnell will be remembered for one thing, keeping Merrick Garland off of the Supreme Court, because when he did that, Mitch McConnell saved democracy. Can you imagine a man, this dastardly individual, Merrick Garland, who has used the power of the Justice Department at the request of the President of the United States, Joe Biden, to go after the political opponent of the President of the United States, used the vast, massive power of federal criminal indictments to stop the candidate of the other party. Listen, the Supreme Court is not asleep. They are not dumb. Even the liberal members of the court know what is going on. The reason that Trump is going to win the Colorado case is that A, the Constitution requires it, but B, the justices, almost all of them, displayed a kind of distemper for what Colorado had done during that argument. And when they got a look at the immunity ruling by the D.C. Circuit, they saw one of the worst decisions ever written by that circuit by 3 people who looked like morons. These are federal circuit judges who wrote an opinion about immunity that was so casual, so flawed, so juvenile, so sophomoric, so first-year law student that the court had to take the immunity case, and they are going to reverse that. You listen, there is no way the Supreme Court is going to allow the D.C. Circuit opinion, which is a piece of legal garbage, to stay on the books.
Well, it doesn't seem to be dissuading other circuit judges from doing this. We have this case in Illinois. I think it's a traffic judge. She adjudicated over traffic violations. She's now thrown Trump off the ballot. I mean, you know, will if the Supreme Court rules on this and in Trump's favor, will this stop?
No, it won't, because what you have going on is a counter-revolution among state court judges and even some federal judges. When you go back and you read that D.C. Circuit case on presidential immunity as a lawyer, your stomach turns. You cannot believe how bad it is. And that's why they granted cert so fast, and they told Jack Smith to go pound sand when he said he wanted it decided right away. But this and that, by the way, that question by Jack Smith showed exactly what their purpose is, and that is to affect the election. And by the way, Jamie Raskin, who used to be my congressman, thank God, used to be is the important part of that phrase. Jack Smith, this guy, Jamie Raskin, is such a phony, such a fake. He's allegedly a constitutional scholar. This guy couldn't pass the first grade test on civics.
Oh. Thank God. I was getting so nervous. I was like, he didn't say anything about the fact it was Jamie Raskin. He actually just went right to it. I was like, Joe, you're missing a step. And he circled back. Oh, yeah. Thank God. All right. That's the Joe diGenova we know and love.
We all did a Saki.
You Saki'd it. And that was on Saki's show, too. All right, Joe, stay with us, because we've got Hunter Biden stuff, and we got Fani Willis stuff that is just beyond belief, and that decision as well from the Fulton County judge. More with Joe diGenova, but first it's 7:15.
On the next Vince Callahan Show, don't miss my exclusive interview with President Donald J. Trump ahead of Super Tuesday. Join us 3 to 6 right here on WMAL.
I was indicted by Fannie in Georgia. Fannie. How did that work out? And her lover, Nathan Wade. And they hired him for almost $1 million because of his great experience. Of course, he didn't have any experience. He had experience in something else. You know that. A lot of And at that, I'm quite sure he was very good based on the fact that she called him 2,000 times.
You know, it deserves to be mocked and laughed at. Again, the President of the United States, former president, is funnier than anything on Saturday Night Live. But this corruption is no laughing matter. When I'm watching these proceedings in Fulton County, Joe, and I keep having to remind myself, these are the arrogant people who are trying to decide for the rest of this country, these authoritarians, trying to decide whether we should be able to vote for Donald Trump or not.
You saw displayed during that testimony and during the oral arguments the other day was a type of arrogance and disrespect for the system that can only come from politically driven prosecutors. This is an embarrassment to the state of Georgia, but they don't know it. One of the reasons is they have a governor, this guy Kemp, whatever his good gifts may be, this guy is such a slug when it comes to the honesty about what's happening in his state because he's so frightened of the masses. What an embarrassment. But then there's Fani Willis is something very special in American history. She is making all prosecutors look bad. She comes on the heels of Jack Smith, who is making himself look like a fool, not only in trial courts around the country, but before the D.C. Circuit and before the Supreme Court of the United States. Fani Willis has done more damage to the criminal justice system in the state of jury than any other single person in the history of that state. What you witnessed the other day, her testimony, the cross-examination, and then the oral arguments, was a criminal justice system in Fulton County that is in free fall. These people are disgraceful. And why, by the way, has there not been a bar complaint filed against her by anybody in the state of Georgia? Why has this nitwit Judge McAfee, why hasn't he indicated that he is going to make a referral to the bar for disciplinary action? And if he doesn't do that, in his opinion, when it comes in a couple of weeks, then he really is a disgraceful performer. I don't know what he's going to do, by the way. He should disqualify them. It's fairly obvious that neither one of these people should be anywhere near this case, nor should the office. That office should be disqualified.
Well, Joe, that's what I wanted to ask. If she is removed, if Willis is removed, and then her entire office would have to be disqualified. But does that mean a new prosecutor takes over? And
yes,
it's not automatically dropped.
No. There's a council. There's something called the state's council, which when something like this happens, it gets sent to the attorney general of the state and a council, and they assign it to some jurisdiction for evaluation. They don't have to bring the case. A new prosecutor could look at it and say, this is a piece of garbage. I'm not going to prosecute this. I'm not going to ruin my reputation by bringing a case against 18 people who didn't do anything but make some phone calls about votes. It may not go forward. You don't know, because the political situation in Georgia is so bad, because you have a governor who doesn't know how to lead. What he should be doing is saying, I want this system cleaned up. I want justice to be fair. I don't want this type of political prosecution. He hasn't done that. He hasn't said that. Kemp thinks he's going to be a future candidate for president of the United States. He is a weak governor. He is a lousy governor. He has not led. And what's going to happen here is they may find an honorable Fulton County, non-Fulton County prosecutor who will look at this and say, this is a piece of garbage. If I were this counsel that's going to reassign this case, if she's disqualified and her office is disqualified, I'd look around, I'd talk to somebody first and say, if you take this case, are you going to throw it out? Please tell me yes, and you'll get the case.
Joe, we never got to Hunter Biden. He testified behind.
He'll be around for a while.
I mean, any quick takeaways based on some of the things that we heard there, other than his testimony validating that his father flat out lied during the campaign, but we pretty much knew that.
I think it was in Gone with the Wind when she said, tomorrow is another day. And I think that what's going to happen here is Hunter is going to do what he does. He's going to continue to play the victim. He's going to go to trial in a couple of cases, even though David Weiss has done his best to get him off the hook. And we'll see. I mean, who knows? I mean, this is when as I said the other day, when your father is the president of the United States with the pardon power and is your co-conspirator in a conspiracy to violate the Foreign Agents Registration Act, you don't have a thing to worry about.
There's Joe diGenova doing a little Scarlett O'Hara action on us. But unlike Rhett Butler, Joe, we do give a damn, and we appreciate you joining us every Monday morning. Thank you.
You bet.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
7:36, it's O'Connor and Company. Boy, if you're just joining us, you just missed an epic half-hour appearance by Joe diGenova. We hit on a lot of important things, including his prediction that the Supreme Court will side with Trump, not just on the Colorado ballot thing, but also on the pending immunity argument. A string of legal victories Joe diGenova is predicting that will pretty much neuter Jack Smith's attempts to throw the former president and potentially future president behind bars before the election. You're going to want to hear that, so listen to the podcast. Download that son of a gun anywhere you listen to your podcasts. It's O'Connor and Company, Apple, Spotify.
Acast.
Is that a thing?
It is.
All right. Coming up at 8:05, John Solomon, Just the News, and then at 8:35, Vince Coglianese, who has an interview with Donald Trump
Amazing.
this afternoon, but we're going to preview it here because, spoiler alert, they've already conducted the interview. So we can talk about it and find out what we're going to hear later this afternoon. 5 o'clock is when we're going to run that. I am Larry O'Connor. That's Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
And Julie, you're a Virginian.
I am.
So it's almost time for you to choose your Republican nominee for the U.S. Senate. And people should don't be freaking out. I know that the Super Tuesday is coming. That's just the presidential nomination process. June is when you'll pick your nominee for Senate. We've been hearing from all the candidates, of course, including our next guest, Hung Cao, former retired Navy captain, special operations, and now wants to continue his dedicated service to this nation in the U.S. Senate. Mr. Cao, thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you, Larry. And Julie, if I get in, I'm going to petition for the Larry's Wine Club to have Boone's Farm, Strawberry Hill on their list.
Why? I feel like you directed that towards me.
You were targeted.
Yeah.
You were well, he's right. He's got a nose for this. Did I mention the Navy? Hung Cao, boy, what a time to be running. There's so much going on, from the border to crime to the economy to national security to foreign affairs. And here's what's remarkable to me. Where is Tim Kaine? Tim Kaine is the invisible man right now. He's supposed to be representing Virginia at a pivotal time in our history.
No, absolutely. He's just going lockstep with Joe Biden and just keeping quiet. Everything from the border, right? I mean, the border is a disaster, and everybody knows it. And even in Southwest Virginia, you know that we're supposed to get we're supposed to, under Donald Trump, have 6 factories down in Southwest Virginia for nitrile gloves. This is latex gloves that everybody uses. It touches every American every day, from the meat packers to the food service attendant to first responders like my wife, who's a EMT, to your surgeons. And Tim Kaine wrote a letter praising Becerra for bringing PPE. However, at the same time, they stopped all the Donald Trump policies that would build 6 factories and 2,500 jobs in Southwest Virginia and start our production of PPE down there.
It really is astonishing how Tim Kaine has been so silent on so many of these, the border, fentanyl, just our livelihoods here in Virginia. But why you? There's a huge field of Republicans running for this nomination, and really good qualified candidates. Why should people pick you over Craig Ennis or Eddie Garcia or many of the others running in this race?
Well, I came here as a refugee, and so I understand the beauty of this country. I tell every person, don't come here, and ask for the American dream if you can't obey the American laws and embrace the American culture. I did it. I bled for this country, and now I'm leading in industry. Also, I'm a senior executive at a Fortune 500 company. We're creating jobs every day. I'm an engineer. I'm a physicist. I have patents under my name. I know how to build and create things. The last thing we need is one more lifelong bureaucrat or ambulance chaser running in the office. I mean, that's the things. We need people that will change and create jobs for America and know how to protect this country.
We're speaking with Hung Kao. He wants the Republican nomination to run against Tim Kaine. And listen, Tim Kaine is considered a longtime stalwart, entrenched senator here from Virginia. You can't beat him. He is considered untouchable. How are you going to win this race? How will you win over voters, especially at a time when Tim Kaine's going to try to make this entire Senate race about Donald Trump, not about his record, and certainly not about Hung Kao?
Oh, that's a wonderful question, because everybody just keeps thinking, hey, this guy's been in office for 30 years in various offices, but he's never won an election on his own. Okay, he's been pulled up by the bootstraps every single time by Mark Warner. But I want your audience to remember this. In 2008, he was supposed to be Barack Obama's running mate, but he was so terrible as a governor, they passed him over for Joe Biden. I mean, let that sink in. Like, you're worse.
Boy, when you put it that way.
Yeah, he got passed over. So they put him in timeout as DNC chair, and then Barack Obama then pulled him up as the senator in Virginia in 2012. And then 2018 was just a bad year. The guy was going to retire because he knew his time was up, but Chuck Schumer forced him to run. This is exactly why Tim Kaine is very beatable, and he's going to turn everything against Donald Trump. But I was down at a rally in Richmond this weekend. The line was out the door and around the corner. I mean, I've never seen this for anybody, including Barack Obama. Like, the people are coming in from California, from Washington State, from Florida, but really 96% of them came from Virginia, and they're excited for Donald Trump. And you don't see this kind of excitement for Joe Biden.
When I said that Tim Kaine's and the Democrats are going to try to make this entire Senate race in Virginia about Donald Trump, I mentioned this to many of the other candidates who are trying to get the Republican nomination. And Hung Kao, I often get answers like, well, it's not about Donald Trump, it's about me. They sort of dance around the Trump issue. I got to say, you're certainly not doing that, because you came out full-throated and endorsed Donald Trump, didn't you? I think 2 weeks ago. You are on board. You're more than willing to run side by side with Donald Trump when you're running for Senate.
Actually, my endorsement came out the day Colorado threw him off the ballot in December, and we had over 1 million views in 24 hours. We have over 1.5 million views on that thing. It was very pragmatic. Look, under Donald Trump, we were thriving as a country. We had security. When I went to the Pentagon in 2016 to write and balance the Navy's budget, I was counting every missile, every bomb, every torpedo for an imminent war against North Korea. And somehow he came in and thwarted that. And then at the end of his term, he brought in peace in the Middle East for the first time in my life with the Abraham Accords. And look at the contrast. Joe Biden got us into 2 wars. There's ships being sunk in the Red Sea by the Houthis. The world is burning under Joe Biden, and if the peacekeeper of all people is Donald Trump. So I'm going to vote for safety and security for my family, for my country under Donald Trump.
All right, we're going to leave it there, Hung Kao, but I think we will probably speak once again before Election Day. But campaign's going well. You're happy with the money?
Oh, absolutely. We were out raising everybody combined, and we turned in 17,000 votes in 5 weeks.
Wow.
So that you need 10,000, and it's due, I think, April 5th or something like that. And we turned it all in. We got pre-checked. We're ready to go. We're on the ballot.
All right, you heard it here. Hung Kao does not need any donations for his campaign. He's all set.
No.
Oh, no way. Quite the opposite. What website do you want people to go to?
It's hungforva.com, so HUNGFORVA.com. We do have all the money we need. The problem is it's in your wallets.
Well done,
smart.
Hung Kao. There, I've heard that line before, actually. I think I did it. Yeah, he stole it from
Yes,
me.
you
He
did.
stole my line.
Oh, dear.
I did.
At least you admit it. Yes, there you go. That's an honest politician for you. He'll steal, but at least he'll be honest about it. Kidding. Hung Kao, thanks for joining us. I think there are plenty of Virginians who would like their senator to be hung.
Yes.
We're still having our debate here about the best frat party movie. This is how we cover the fact that University of Maryland has suspended fraternities and sororities. All I can do is say, all right, what was better, Animal House, Old School, Revenge of the Nerds? So
none of which I've seen. I cannot.
I know
it's so weird.
This is a huge pop culture black mark for you.
Loss for me.
You've never seen these. Although I wouldn't recommend. They're guy movies. Honestly.
Yeah, there's just a lot of that genre that I have not. I'm more in the Downton Abbey.
Yeah. Gee, what should we watch tonight, honey? Downton Abbey or Porky's? Why not both?
My poor husband.
So yeah, if you're tired of Sense and Sensibility, you might want to check out. Van Wilder. But the poll is still up over there at my Twitter, my X account, and there's a lot of votes right now. Animal House just going away. It is the OG. It was the first. It was the best. So check that out. All right, Nikki Haley won the D.C. primary, so it's great. Good for her. 63% of the vote to 33% for Donald Trump. Donald Trump put out a statement saying, well, she's officially crowned Queen of the Swamp. Seriously, if you're Nikki Haley, this is a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it? Where
Sure.
you're like, good news is you won. That you finally got a victory. The bad news is it's the District of Columbia.
Yeah, you finally got a victory. Now everyone's making fun of you.
Well, and by the way, literally in the D.C. Republican primary yesterday, it was a total of 1,900 votes.
Mm.
And of that, 1,200 went to Nikki Haley, so now she gets the delegates for the convention.
Can't even fill Constitution Hall.
But right, but this tells you, and so think about how overwhelmingly Democrat the town is, and of the Republicans, overwhelmingly they don't
Trump.
like Donald Trump, and that's your jury pool.
That's right.
For Jack Smith's cases,
Yep.
or for that matter, any case that comes up in this town. You wonder how the FBI Susskind, the FBI lawyer who worked to lie about getting a FISA warrant during Russian collusion, how was he not convicted?
That's
this is
why.
how he wasn't convicted. It's 7:53.